Yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Welcome to Against the Grain, where curiosity leads the way.
Kaliji, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so honoured that you would join me on my new podcast venture. You came to mind when I was preparing my list of people I wanted to invite. You just came straight into my mind because obviously, you know, we met in 2008, 16 years ago, can you believe?
Yes,
and we ran around the crop circle together, and we've been friends ever since and in contact ever since. And so, you know, of the magical things and the magical people that I've met around the crop circles, you know, the involvement that I've had and friendship I've had with you and going out to India and so on has touched me deeply. And you just came to mind as somebody I wanted to invite on and talk to about you and what brought you to the crop circles and, you know, your yoga experience and so on. So I'm going to start first of all with a geometry question.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's such a pleasure.
It's an honor to be here, and I'm so looking forward to this time to chat with you.
Thank you. TriYoga. Obviously, straight away, we've got a reference to a threefold trinity in the title of your world-famous yoga organization. Why try? Why TriYoga?
It's a download.
It's a download. Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, it's a download, yes. It seems that I've had many experiences where I can ask a question and it just suddenly appears, and that was one. Like in 1980, January the 5th, I had did the same thing, and I said to the few here for meditation, let's just visualize energy flowing up the spine, the sound of Om. I said, I'll try for my first time. And when I did, the energy followed. And a system of yoga flowed forth and has continued to this day. But at one point I said, what should I call this? Like, you know, what do I call it? Because it's now people asking me to teach, so I have to write something down.
Sure.
So I said, what shall I call it? And immediately it came through as TriYoga. And then there was a bit of time after that. I was out in nature, and this is a big miracle in my life. I was thinking of the name, and suddenly I look up in the sky, and there is the logo of a triangle, as clear as I'm looking at you right now.
Okay.
And it was in the gaslight, you know, blue. And it was up in the sky, a triangle so large, and it had TriYoga inside it written. So then, long story short, then, okay, now we want to have it animated. So we come back to California, and we find an animator. And it'll be my first video, and the first time it's going to be seen, you know, in visual or print or anything. So as soon as we found the person, he came to my ashrama, we shook hands. I will do it, he said. I will, you know, for this logo, animate it. And as soon as we shook hands, this major earthquake began in Santa Cruz, like it's a big one in California, one of the biggest. And so it's been a lot of stories around that triangle.
Wow.
And when mudras were flowing, they're so often in triangle shapes. You see. And this was like the first major mudra that over 1,200 flowed forth from here.
Yeah.
All individual.
Yeah.
So, and there were so many triangles in these mudras. Yeah.
And
so that's how the name
That's
came.
how the name came. Okay. So let's go on to the mudras then, the magic mudras. I felt this as I said to you before we came on stage here, that when that happened to you, when you sort of went into it, seemed a spontaneous magic mudra session at Michael's house all those years ago, that I felt this tingling in my hands. It was unexplainable. Is that what you feel? Is that what do you feel when your hands want to go into this?
It's a full experience, and not just in the hands at that time.
Okay.
It's a conscious experience.
Okay.
You know, and being clearly as a channel at that moment for the Guruji.
Mm-hmm.
See, it just starts
Just
then.
start.
I just talk about it,
Yeah.
and the mudra and the mantra wants to come.
Right.
So ever since that day in 1980 that I focused on it, it's done that ever since. Guru Mata. See, and then the mantras will just pop out in the middle of a conversation.
Yeah.
And that was calling, you know, Guru Matas like, you know, the Mother Goddess. But they began. Is that your question?
Well,
in 1980.
yeah.
As soon as I visualized the energy, the hands began.
So it all started from you visualizing energy going up your spine in the words Om.
Yes, because 4 years prior, I asked the divine, what is the source of happiness? I'm happy, but like, what is the source, like the real happiness?
Okay.
And immediately, Kundalini experience for over 12 hours. I was by myself in a regular chair that I pulled into a room and said, what's the source of happiness? And so 4 years later, in 1980, then I said to them, hey, why don't we visualize what happened to me at that time? And so visualize the energy flowing up.
Okay.
And immediately the hands began, and it's continued to deliver a complete system of yoga. And even the body's like, it's sacred movement.
Yeah.
It's even like a mudra in the way it moves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So it's like a combination, right, of the philosophy
Yeah.
that we live by, meditation,
yeah,
and the sacred movement. Yeah, the Trinity.
there's the Trinity.
And of course, music is integrated throughout.
Well, music. When I'm on the other side of the interview, people ask me about numbers and geometry, and
Yes.
and you know, you can talk about numbers and geometry as something that are not physical. Number is metaphysical. Geometry is metaphysical.
Yes.
It's like Scott Onstott uses the term, language is the map, but the consciousness is the territory. And so language, the fact that we have the ability to develop language to communicate, it points to consciousness because it's only when we apply meaning to those words, to that language, to those physical
Yes.
sounds that it comes together. And so number and Trinity and these things that you're talking about on the other side, something that resonates with me of coming from this metaphysical realm. Do you know what I mean? Or
Yes,
existing
absolutely.
across the realms. And what you're talking about is that channel
Yes.
that's led your life for the last
Yes.
44 years, if it's 1980.
Yes.
and enabled you to build and help so many people around the world find
Yes.
something within themselves. You've been I see you as this divine tool that's gone around and helped people to see themselves, to discover and find themselves. Would that be fair?
Yes. Yes, it absolutely. It's now we're teaching in over 45 countries. and none of that was like what I call an effort on my part to try to seek that out.
Yeah.
Even though, of course, I'm available. I actually, it was one of those questions to the divine when I was like in my young 20s. I was working normal jobs like anyone, and in between them, I said to the divine, while taking time to practice some music in between,
Yeah.
if you give me your work, I'll give you every breath. And literally a phone call came asking me to teach philosophy.
Wow.
And I've been doing that ever since.
Wow.
Yes, it's been a remarkable journey of having this guiding in this way. But it began with, being available. And that's why it was so great how we began today, to take that moment to go in.
Yeah.
Because that's what we want to do.
That's what we want to do. We want to be whole with this conversation. So that was the point I was talking about with the number and geometry being from this metaphysical place, and it existed prior to physical reality and runs through physical reality. Well, that's music, because music is number and time, as you know. I remember when I was in the ashram in Mysore, and I started to learn to play tabla,
I didn't know.
Yeah, I did.
Tabla.
I did 4 lessons.
I love tabla.
I did 4 lessons a week.
I do 4 lessons a week now.
Do you really? I
Yes.
unfortunately didn't keep it up because my African drums when I went out there.
Exactly.
But I wish I
your
had
polyrhythms.
Exactly. I love it so much, as you know. But I remember when I got given the set of tabla, that one of the priests in the ashram sprinkled some flowers over it for me and said a blessing and just looked me in the eyes and said, "Music is divine." And it's so true, isn't it? It's so true.
It is, absolutely. Yeah, before they play their instrument, they do pranam to it, the flowers, because they feel we can experience the divine through music. So that's a vehicle of the divine.
Yeah.
So they treat it that way.
And also I like it because in a way it sort of, it demystifies this notion of the divine because we understand number. Do you know what I mean? We understand that music is number and time. So geometry and number, that's where it moves me on nicely to the crop circles.
Yes.
So when I first met you in 2008, was that your first time?
2008 was it the first time? Yes. Yes, it was, because I was there a few days before, and then to seek it out, met Michael.
Yeah.
And then he told me about you.
Yeah.
And then when I met you, I knew I can bring Sri Swamiji. You're the one. So I went first to scout it out.
Ah, I didn't know you were scouting it out for Swamiji. I thought,
yes, finding the right guy.
Oh my goodness! You just after all 16 years now just discovered something about that magical day.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah. I was told about Michael by a acquaintance we both had in California,
right,
who spoke with Michael and gave me the contact.
And
so therefore I was able to go and meet him and told him about Sri Swamiji, and I wanted to show him the crop circles. And then he mentioned you, so I thought, well, I got to meet you first. So we met, and then a few days later we came back with him.
I remember so well. And whilst we're talking about this, the photographs that you've kindly sent me of that time,
yes.
I have them as well. I have so many of those.
Oh, do you really? That's so great.
Not some of them I don't that you sent, so thank you for those, but most of them I've got.
That's so nice. You have them still.
I'm going to put those up as we're talking about this, so that the viewers can see those pictures of that time when, because you hugging Michael and the looks on your faces as well, just.
Our hearts, connected from the first moment, like old souls just knowing one another, just like you and I.
Yeah.
And we three had that beautiful and still do that connection.
Fantastic. So now you have to forgive me because I don't remember the first crop circle I took you to. I remember the first crop circle we went to with Sri Swamiji, but I don't remember the first one that you and I went to. Do you remember which one it was?
Let's see. Well, it was not the first one. I think it may have been the pie one, I think.
It was the pie one.
Yeah.
That's right, because we went back to it. That's right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine that's the one to begin with? Michael's, he had so much to share and so much knowledge on that, so I loved it.
Well, he sort of co-discovered the solution to it, as you know, with Karen. So that was a magical thing, and then somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing.
Absolutely.
And so then you came back with Sri Swamiji, and we all went together back to the pie formation. Now,
yes.
Now that obviously, you remember magical things happened to me at that time with Swamiji, but
oh yes, I know that story well. I tell it so many times. Yes, I've told it so many times.
So Mike, when we got out of the car, there was a rabbit. I saw a rabbit. I don't know if you remember this, and I called Sri Swamiji over, and that's when we connected. I don't know if I've ever told you this.
No, I don't know the rabbit story.
So there was a rabbit just under some bushes, and it caught my eye, and I called Swamiji over, and he came over, and we both looked for this rabbit. And when he saw its little tail, he looked me in the eyes, and that's when we really connected, because it was like that innocent child.
Yes,
look,
you saw it.
And he said, I saw it, with excitement.
Absolutely. That's his divine child side, yes.
It's amazing.
It is amazing.
So tell me, Kaliji, what did you feel when you first went into a crop circle?
Well, because that was, special. It was magical from the beginning. I have so many, experiences to share, because each time something significant has happened.
Okay.
And I mean, I didn't go there to find if it's real or not. I knew it was from the moment I ever heard about them. It was just yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like even for that one, my camera, when I went inside and the videos, they stopped. Fortunately, I have pictures others had from a distance, but mine stopped. And I just got to be there, with Sri Swamiji and you and a few others. And it feels like, it's a natural place to, for meditations, like you just enter into the room, you enter into that space, and you're already elevated in that way.
Right.
And in those who already are meditators, then you can really take that and expand with it, that feeling.
Yeah.
I know that time when we first went, I must say, when Sri Swamiji gave you, the ring.
Yeah.
And then you put it on. And then as we left, it was a little bit of a distance walk right to the car.
Yeah.
And I was following, it was a narrow path, so I never looked back. I just assumed you were there. And then as we were approaching the car, I looked back, just to make sure everybody was there, and you were missing. So that's when I told Sri Swamiji, I said, I don't see Gary. And I was puzzled because, it didn't make any sense. And he said, oh, that's okay. Those Atmans, Atman means soul or beings.
Yeah.
Those Atmans up there, they're just playing with him. And they took the ring off, and I had to go and get it for him and put it back on. And what was so cool is when you then came, he said he'll be here soon. And sure enough, soon you came running, and you got up, and I said, and you said, you won't believe what happened, or something like that. I said, well, here's what Swamiji said. And then you said, I love magic. Then we get to the car, and you go off to the side, and Swamiji says to him, he's our family member.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And then you came back, and he invited you to come
to the ashram.
To his home.
Yeah.
His ashram. Mm-hmm.
3 months I was there. It was challenging, especially at first.
Yeah.
It was really challenging.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah.
You should have gone when I was there.
I should have gone when you was there, definitely. I was in hot water and I didn't really realise it. Yeah, I was like, you...
Yeah, we have a different experience. Yeah,
I saw that when you arrived. That was towards the end of my stay, though, because you came in the December, and so
December.
I left in the January, I think, or the middle of January or something, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'd gone through the kind of the whole
Indian experience, ashram experience,
and then we went to Hyderabad as well for Navaratri. So there was that.
Did you really? Oh, you did that experience too.
I did. Yeah, the overnight train to Hyderabad.
That one just got burnt down.
Did it really?
That one, yes. And what remained were the deities with their clothes on, untouched, and everything around them burnt, but the deities absolutely 100% untouched.
Never really.
And absolutely, it was a big miracle. I went there to see it. It's an amazing miracle. I mean, the whole thing's gone except for the temple, except the perfection, the garlands, everything, and it's just stopped right before each of them. So now they built it over, and the grand opening is coming on the New Year, coming up this month, and it's spectacular. And Swamiji just announced recently, in his later years, he's going to reside there. So you've already been there and seen it.
Wow, really?
At least the land, yes.
Yeah.
That's what he said. He said his samadhi will be there when he leaves. Like, he'll leave his body there, and people, of course, will go as a pilgrimage. Yeah.
Well.
But he's not going anywhere now.
No.
One,
he doesn't.
Two,
he doesn't look any different
over.
than when I met him.
Doesn't look any different.
It's incredible.
No. He's connected to the energy source, and he just opened up 6 or 8 places in U.S. And there are different parts of the world, in India, and all the sacred places. His energy is just full, and his force is just as strong.
That's one of the intense things with the ashram experience is the stories straight away, isn't it? Everyone wants to tell you the stories of when I met Swamiji, this happened here. Wow, it's so unbelievable. You're like, okay, I'm in this realm now of a completely different realm, really, with the way that people see the world around them. It's
Yes.
And India itself is there's this phrase. Did you ever see the movie the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel?
No, I didn't.
It's a British movie about some retired people who go to live in India, into a retirement home that somebody set up.
Oh, that would be so good to see.
It's such a good movie. And there's Dame Judi Dench, one of our famous actresses, is one of the lead roles in the movie, and she describes arriving in India as this wave that hits you. And she says, if you try to fight the wave, it's just going to beat you up. And she talks about flow, and that you have to flow with it. And that brings me on to, the whole philosophy, it seems, behind your movement is this flow, state of flow. Tell me about that philosophy, please, Kaliji.
Mm-hmm. This is what has come spontaneously. I never practiced any form of Hatha Yoga. I never had a desire to practice it. I was teaching yoga philosophy, and even when I'd go to teach in different ashramas in young 20s, they would say, hey, why don't you stay? I'd look at it, oh no, I don't know what that has to do with meditation. And then when 1980 the movements began, they began to flow, just like the mudras. And there was a connection. Now they flow, but they will pause exactly where they're meant to.
Right.
There'll be an asana or sustained mudra, breath in that way. So it's a vehicle for the increased flow of prana that takes place through the pranayama. And then the prana itself, its aim is to flow, right? The ki or chi is to flow.
Yeah.
And any stagnation, then that's where we have the obstacle or the hindrance taking place. So just like we want life to flow and our conversation to flow, everything in that way. So it's a flow of prana. And so the hands, or even the movement, it needs to reflect that. Any sporadic movement, unconnected movement, ungraceful movement, then it's not yoga asana.
Okay.
You must have the fluidity, but not just flow, but based upon an intelligent sequencing that cultivates the energy and moves it upward. So it becomes a meditation and movement, but that one can then move through life in this altered or higher state, more natural state.
Right.
It's all about the universal flow in that way. Even as I speak now, the hands will just flow.
Yeah.
First I started to demonstrate, but then they continue on.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's just like everything, right? The universal flow.
Yeah.
To mirror it in our selves in all ways.
And so the system that you developed, channeled as you developed, it's designed to build a foundation for people to more and more immerse themselves in a state of universal flow?
Yes, absolutely. As Sri Swamiji said, TriYoga is merging into the universal energy.
Got it.
Yeah, and explain, and that's why the triangles, it represents, like here I have it right here, the Sri Chakra.
Yes.
And it's all based right on the triangles in it,
yes.
And the center one. And that's like what this is.
Right.
And that was my first mudra that came through.
Right.
And then over 3 days, 800 different ones came.
800.
And then over the 800, and at the time that was like in the 90s. So we didn't have the digital, we just had the film.
Yeah.
And the mudras, like, I was in meditation, and actually a relatively new student was there. And when my hands were doing this, like that, I don't want to change the topic, but I want to mention this.
No, nice.
For like a year.
Right.
Would just do it. I didn't think why, but I was kind of used to spontaneous movement. But it was to prepare. And that seems to be the way to go in these. And when I came out of the meditation that day, the hands were like this.
Right.
And I said, oh, take a picture. This is different. And that began a journey of over 1,200 of me saying, over these many years, take a picture, it's different, and every single time it's been different. So that's over 1,200.
1,200.
Like, seeing 1,200 crop circles and you knowing, has that ever been done? You probably would, but that's what it's like with the mudra.
Yeah.
But that's not so easy to have hand positions change and every time be different.
Yeah.
And then they will fit in often right in some type of a beautiful sequence when it comes. And so that's how they began that day when I said take a picture. And as soon as I finished, or as soon as he finished the photo, then the hands went into, I think it went from here, and then it went to here.
Right.
And then, oh, take a picture. And then it just kept going. With the film, it would end that my hands would stop in some position to stop. You know, it was over. And the film, you could hear it go. Ding, 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 ding. This energy knew if there was 12, if there was 24 or 36 in the film. And so the mudras would give like 36, 24, 12, like really quickly enough to take a photo.
Really?
And no way is any counting going on because I don't even know what the film is in everyone's camera.
Wow.
Yeah, everyone just putting it in. And who happens to be there during those 3 days. So then at the end of 3 days, we had them all printed. And I had the idea, which I obviously wasn't the right idea at the time, because I said, let's remove the duplicates. So we laid them all out, but there were no duplicates. There were none at all. One other part of this story, can I tell you?
Please.
At the time, we started to take front and back because Guru Mata, it can look like, you know, something in the front.
Yeah.
In the back
Totally.
would be so different.
Yeah.
So at one time, eager students didn't know. And when I took a break, I came back and they had taken them all apart thinking, hey, look at all these different ones. But now we lost the front and the backs, right?
Right.
So now we had to go back through these 1,200 and start to match. Some were obvious, but some you can imagine. Here's the end of this part of the story. Each time I would say, every time, I have so many witnesses, I just don't know. I can't figure which way it would be. Immediately, the body would be like picked up. It could be pushed forward. It could be shaking. Something dramatic would take place, and the hands would land in that mudra. Every single time for years we've witnessed this when something we need to know, oh, what was the back? Or what was the front?
Wow.
And that energy is universal consciousness is always present with this when we're open to that channel.
Right.
And so even to yesterday, I do online every day.
Yeah.
Just yesterday, in the middle of the class, my hands went into a new mudra.
A new one.
So I say, take a picture. Yes, happening all the time.
Okay.
But, you know, not like every day,
Right.
of course not. But yesterday, some of my students wrote, oh, it's interesting, you're meeting with Gary today. And this great experience happened yesterday online. And I was online, and my hand went into a new one, and I knew it, right in the middle of a sustained asana. So I told my assistant, you know, turn off the screen, put the slide up, you know, be right back. But it's just say stay in the flow is what we have. So they stay in the posture. It's an easy one to stay. And he comes and he takes the photo. Immediately the hands magic and go into another unique one. By the time he could go back, my body then took all these mudras. Many new movements came forth. And spontaneous laughter sometimes occurs, which did yesterday. Like the goddess just laughs and laughs for no reason. Otherwise, it's not spontaneous, right?
Right.
And such joy. And new mudras were flowing. And in Asia, we recognize each other. I have a lot of students there in China, in Taiwan, in Korea, and Japan. And why? Because that's our greeting to each other.
And that's
it just started happening. And it's in all their pictures. Like it didn't take out, it didn't happen over here, even though I do it. in all the Asian countries, you know, it's even on their WeChats, it's in all their social media, and their TriYogis, that's them.
fantastic. Fantastic.
And it has that triangle at the top, you know, going in.
Fantastic.
A triangle going down and all the
Going down.
symbols. Yeah, and it has our friends from above. Looks like their faces are in it.
Well, there's that story, and you've sent me the images of that too. When you came to the crop circles. Now, I don't remember the year, unfortunately. What year was that? It was 2010 or something like that, was it?
What year was that? 2000, when the mudra came was...
Yeah.
I know, 2011. 2011. Yes, okay.
Tell the story. Tell the story.
Oh, that was okay. So we arrived in Davies, and it's late,
Yep.
and I'm in my room, and I'm alone in there meditating before sleep, and I go to the window, and I said, I know you don't have to look out to speak to anyone. It was like, 1 in the morning or something, but still, I played that out.
Yeah.
I said, if you all could see me, speaking to like our celestial friends, or whatever friends you want to come from other places,
Yeah.
other planets, universes. So I said, you can hear me, then let me know and give me a sign while I'm here.
Okay.
Communicate it back. And then the next morning, we heard there was a new crop circle that appeared like a couple of hours later. So we went out in it, and it had a certain geometry to it that was symbolic of how many people we had in our group.
Okay.
So we had 10 people, and we'd have like 10 lotuses around like that. So, and crop circles have people there, but when we arrived, silent. Nobody was there for this very fresh crop circle. But everyone knew about it because I went to that local place and people were speaking.
Right.
But everyone was held out. 45 minutes. So I go into it, and spontaneous mudras began, but it went to that one, classic one, within a minute and stayed for 45 minutes while I would have like a spontaneous laughter or in a very blissful experience.
Right.
And it was a very intricate one. Even when I would go to remove it, it would come back. It was so intricate. And the moment that trance meditation ended, you could hear the cars come, people coming in a distance. It was like pure magic, because 45 minutes we were all in there all witnessing this experience.
Yeah.
We thought that was enough. That was major. That was what I needed. Go to back that night, giving my thanks for that wonderful experience. And I said, but I'll be back tomorrow. And sure enough, then the next morning we hear there's another crop circle, and it's of a face. It's of the ET itself that I'd called out to, And it had the face, and I never had my hair fixed that way that day. It had a bandana type of thing on it.
Okay.
Around it. Even to this day, I haven't. But when you see the crop circle in its face, I look like I'm dressed the same. And so we go to the crop circle, and on the trail lines up there, we look, and it's huge. And we first see the main one of the face, the very clear alien face. And we see, my God, that's exactly, looking like the mudra I had the day before. And then my hands were always up here at the third eye, up like this.
Yeah.
See, that's where it was. But the fingers are more intricate. We had to see photo. I can duplicate this up. But anyway, let me first do this. And you see that there's the geometrical forms are coming.
Yes.
But it was like that for the whole time.
You
And
couldn't
then
stop. You couldn't stop doing it. You were doing it all the time.
No.
Yeah.
And so my face, they took pictures of it, and it looked like an alien. Then the next day, there is the alien face. And then at the bottom of the trail, is way down, we realized, there's the exact pattern my mudra fingers were in. And you can see it when you're there. You can see how the wheat or the barley, whichever it was moving.
Right.
It was exactly like it.
Exactly like it.
It was fantastic. So then, from there, we the next day, then we left. We went to Germany, and I even asked again for a sign. Do I need to be there to have it? And the crop circle again spoke to me. That was very clearly that was created the next day, and it also had a face. So it was amazing. It was just an amazing journey. It was when they had the two faces, and they had big like a Sahasrara chakra coming out of it.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I know the one you mean.
2 days in a row.
Yeah.
But it's 2 days in a row. There were alien faces, which is not often.
No.
And it's both of those that I was asking for in the time that this is when this was born, and it's been there ever since. But that was an extraordinary experience, and that's when the mudras I just mentioned began.
Right.
And from that, and then those who are really into the same interesting great phenomenon that we have on the planet, the main in your face one, miracle, the crop circles.
Yeah.
So those, who see this in the other countries, they're quite interested when I tell them about you and Michael and and
That's
do my little
interesting.
best to share what I can. But
That's interesting.
You are known in those places.
Wow.
Yeah. More than here, people are, because they all want to know. Once they can do that, they're ready.
Is that really? Because so let me fill you in on a piece of the story, because you know that.
Oh, good.
So when I first met you, I talked to you about the fact that I followed the martial arts path and I went into the internal arts, and so I started to get. Not long after I walked into the crop circles, the teacher that took me to the crop circles was a Qigong teacher. He was a tantric Kundalini teacher. Wow. He's the man that took me, and we did Qigong in my first crop circle, and from that moment on, I started to get downloads, if you want to call it that. Okay, there's so many, right? And so, and it was only later that I would then discover that they actually existed. Probably much like yourself with yoga postures. They come, and then you find out that that's actually taken from some tradition.
Exactly.
Right. So so I've had quite a lot of that with the martial arts side. It's been really my kind of channel, and so the martial arts, going into crop circles, feeling those energies has been the same thing, and so. These kinds of notions, they go against the grain for most people. That's why I've called my podcast Against the Grain. To have these kinds of experiences that you've just discussed going into a crop circle, it makes sense to me now, because I've had not only my own experiences going in crop circles that are very similar and almost the same, but lots of people tell me that they've had them too. And those of us that have been around the crop circles, like Michael, for many years, we know that there's this personal aspect to your experience. Sometimes it doesn't always last. And obviously 2011 was yours. You went there and you had this. Okay, so that teacher told me that the business of the 21st century was to clean up East meeting West, for Western people to really understand the Eastern philosophies, and that to me became the yogic traditions in India and the martial Qigong traditions of China, and us understanding them. Now you've just told me that most of your Asian students are running around, and hearing about me with my experience in the crop circles. And so East meeting West, now 27 years later for me, you've just described it to me in this beautiful way where...
Oh, absolutely.
Isn't that amazing?
Because you and Michael and the crop circles and my Mudras are part of conversations here regularly,
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And they can understand so wonderfully, when they can feel that, and
that's fantastic.
They feel the energy because they're born with the understanding of whether been on the country, their culture, chi or ki.
Of course.
So when you enter there, then there's already that understanding. There's prana. They've already seen there are different types of masters having access to it.
And that's what took me on my journey, really. When I went to South America, and I lived in Mexico for a while, and I've been around Brazil quite a lot, and I've spent a lot of time in West Africa with the drumming traditions, the polyrhythms, and so on. And they're all about bringing about. Have you heard of? There's a psychologist called Zizek Mihaly. He talks about the state of flow. He scientifically was this guy that talked about what happens when we go into this state of flow, right? As if they can explain all of it from a Western perspective. But he does really well. And when you go to South America or you go to other countries, they embrace this stuff as normal. It's only in a few countries, isn't it, in Europe and in North America, where it's actually a bit of a challenge to get people to accept that there's this other world that we live in that's right here with us.
Absolutely.
It's the world beside us.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I tell them that when I go, it's like I go and there's no convincing that there is prana and there's this other world, it's part of their culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how's that? Is that
natural understanding? Sorry,
how's that been, like the difference between teaching European and North American, Western, what we would call Western students and their mindsets compared to? How have you got around that in your experience to bring the East to the West?
There's the flow is available for everyone. It is universal. So wherever people come from, there'll be some aspect
Okay.
that draws them in.
Okay.
And so, like when I first went to Europe, there was great appreciation of the knowledge behind this, great appreciation of the detail, the focus to detail that every movement we do is supportive of this, of being in alignment.
Right.
But once they start to flow this way, in this alignment, then they connect with the energy and they experience it from inside out. They get the experience, the aha feeling and understanding. So we have some, in Europe we have, I think, more TriYoga centers than anywhere, even though we have maybe around 17 in China.
Wow, 17 now.
Yeah. 17 in China and I think around 25 in Europe.
And I've only been to Hong Kong. I haven't been to mainland China. What was your first experience in China like?
Well, the first began in a magical way.
No.
I have to go back into the past just a bit
Okay.
to show how nice it was set up for me.
Sure.
I was in Denmark, and Sri Swamiji had just completed a puja ceremony of the Sri Chakra he does. And afterwards, everyone went to do, to maybe prepare for breakfast or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It was a small group, and I walked in and was alone. And he said, I want to go to China. I want to see bonsai. I said, bonsai? He said, yes. And that was the extent of that wish. And immediately, I started to receive invitations to go there.
Right.
And so from there, it was the first yoga conference in China, the very first one, and I was invited to be the main presenter.
Right.
Because they had seen me in Singapore.
Okay.
And once they saw the mudras, like a crop circle really,
Yeah.
isn't it? Once they saw, then the invitations began. So when I was invited, I mentioned Sri Swamiji, so they gave the whole first day just to us. So that was the entrance in terms of yoga, but I did take Swamiji just prior to experience the bonsai.
Right. He got his wish.
He got the wish. But the experience was wonderful. It just flowed. Everything has the energy that's behind this TriYoga, the universal energy. It opens the doors. When I was 20 years old, I went to a medium.
Right.
And he's still a dear friend today. He's in his 90s and exceptional. And he said to me when I was just 20 that you're here to bring forth an ancient yoga. And the spiritual master is in India, and you will be working with him in some capacity, and that's why you've come. I didn't know anything about this, of course. Then he said, it will all begin with your hands.
Really?
And when he said, yes, he said, it'll all begin with your hands. I was 20 years old in Kentucky.
In Kentucky.
Right? Yeah, and I didn't really speak much in those days, and I definitely didn't write. He said, you will write volumes. And of course, I write all the time
Yeah.
now, but it just flows in that way. But he said, begin with your hands, and at that moment, like a web, like a duck, and how the parts in between,
Yeah.
that was all blue. There was nothing there but again, that gas blue light. I just realized twice that had appeared, that color. And someone was with me and saw it too. Yeah, so we both saw that light. And I didn't even think about that because it just seemed a little odd.
Yeah, sure.
Begin with your hands. So I just let that go. And I just went because a friend encouraged me to go. But then everything started to come true. Like he said to me, when I left, if anything comes true, because I've never received anything like this, then please let me know. So that was exactly right. He said, when your hands begin, that will open the doors everywhere. And now going into Asia, like you said, how did it begin?
Yeah.
If I had just gone, it wasn't just going with my hands like this. These opened the door. It didn't matter who saw it. It didn't matter if there was the person working at the desk who happened to catch eye of it. It didn't matter if there was traveling through customs. It didn't matter if I was walking down the street. At one time in Taiwan, the military was doing their drills, and I was sightseeing and happened to walk by, my hands are in it. They stop. And I have pictures of them coming over, and they're so sweet, and they all want to do the mudra.
Really?
All in the military outfits.
Really?
It opened the door, and at that moment, I knew, that's what he meant. I'll open the door even to the midst of their drills.
Wow.
It's so sweet to come. And it has done that to all the different yoga associations I need to enter, because maybe no one understands why, but they know there's something unique happening and taking place.
Yeah.
And in that part of the world, how's it different, you ask, than this part?
Yes.
We never brought our hands together yet.
Right.
We maybe on a Sunday people are told to,
Yes.
but we never really did that yet in this culture.
Yes.
But their culture, they made the big, bringing the two realms together, right?
Right.
The spirit and the matter together.
Right.
They've done that.
Of course.
And for them, they've done this.
Yes.
So that's the entrance into the mudras, because they flow, or to anything spiritual, it's that surrender into it.
Okay.
And so for them, it was easy to do that.
Wow. Wow. That's such a great story. Wow. See, I asked that question and I had no idea you were going to answer that question that way. And that's just the best answer ever.
Yeah, it's a form of cross. I went through all those places. No effort on my part. Absolutely effortless.
You know,
As soon as they see it, it begins. One more part. I entered into the Asian world through Singapore, the International Yoga Conference. And I was on a flight, September, the classic 9/11 when it took place.
Right.
So I was leaving here when the disaster was taking place in America, 9/11. I was on United flying to bring TriYoga to the Asian world.
And that on that day?
And when it was happening on the flight, everything went silent. When I arrived to land and my hands went into the mudra, then they soon after, shared the story. So I was there at that time. It was just such a pair of opposites, really, taking place. But that's when it took place. The mudras entering into Singapore was in 2001.
Wow.
And then from there, people from China saw. And when they saw this, they said, please bring mudra to China. And then people saw it again and said, please bring, like Taiwan, please bring Japan. And also we have a center, 3 centers in South Korea, and it just spread like that, all because of this download.
Wow. Wow.
In the crop circle.
In the crop
circle.
This is it, isn't it? This is.
That's when that began. In the crop circle.
Wow.
And it's gone from there.
Wow. East meets West. I mean, you've just filled in these parts of the story that that I got from 1997 from my teacher. It's about East meeting West, and now
Yes.
You've just told me that story. That's just so.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
See, that's how you entered. You entered East-West together, because that was your entrance,
yes.
right? You're actually doing your sacred movement in the crop circle.
Yes.
In the West.
Yes.
And so you entered already like that. A lot of people, one or the other, bringing them together.
Yes.
That's how you entered. And that's what had to happen, I feel that way.
Yeah.
Just
that's
mirroring,
it,
who you really are inside.
Who you really are. But you see, I in my own journey, I've struggled with that along the way. It hasn't been so flow for me. That even though intellectually I know, one of the teachings from my teacher was that most people think of energy as force, it comes from a forceful reaction. So, a vehicle's engine works by putting some gasoline into a chamber and setting fire to it. So it forces this piston down and turns the crankshaft and makes the wheels go along. Or you force two atoms together to make a nuclear explosion. It's all about force. But in a universe that's 98 point something% space, force only works in very local areas. And so even though I intellectually know that, and know also that when I sit back and I allow things to come to me, like I recently moved into a new apartment, okay, and I needed things, and I thought, okay, I'm not just going to rush out like my impulsive self and just buy stuff to get those spaces filled. I'm going to let these things that I want to put in these spaces, I don't even know what half of them are, but I'm going to, and they come.
That's great.
They just come to you, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's great. That is so excellent. I found out also when there's changes going on, that they will change. Different sacred objects will come.
Yeah.
Things will leave. Yeah.
I wanted
Yeah.
some Buddha statues,
Yes.
and I thought, okay, I
Yeah.
want the bald laughing Buddha with the big fat belly.
Yes, I have one. Yes.
Okay, and I thought, okay,
Prosperity.
And it was just last week. I'd been waiting and I'd been looking, in stores or looking for various places. Nothing came to it that caught me. And then I just went on, and there it was, 5 of them.
Really?
And the man was just like, he wanted the right person to have them. He didn't care about the money. He just was caring about the home they were going to go to. And when we met and talked, he was like, oh, that's it. I'm really happy they're going to the right place.
That is a great photo. I can see how that would be perfect for you.
Yeah, it feels like a self-portrait
And
as I'm getting older. It's like my own sculpture with a bald head and a big belly.
And your Sahasrara is bright, so we can all see. That's good.
Exactly.
Well, having 5 is, I've heard you speak on 5 and the sacredness, and we of course have that in yoga of the 5.
Yes.
Like the 5 fingers. And recently I heard you on a podcast talking about you began 5 teeth. That was new for me. I've learned so much from what you share.
Oh, thank you.
And we have 5 holes in the front of our face,
right.
2 eyes, 2 nose, and a mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's 5. We have our torso, right?
Yeah.
And our limbs.
Yeah. And the proportion of 5 is this golden circle, the golden mean, the golden
that's
ratio,
right.
that comes out of 5. And so, that's all in our fingers, and in the ratio between this part of our finger and this part will be that 0.618. Not for everybody, but if you take 100 people and average it
Yes.
out, it comes out at that. So
Oh, that's interesting.
that's really cool as well. Our whole body's made up of these ratios.
Well, of course, if you think how it's been created,
Exactly.
and have a great order to it.
Exactly. So amazing, isn't it? To have discovered
Yes.
these things along the way has been the joy for me, really, because just about who's making the crop circles is such a dull argument, really, once you've moved into all the magic that's in them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Kaliji.
It has been such an incredible experience to be able to talk with you.
You too.
We've never been able to sit without having a flow of conversation in all of our years together.
This is true.
Whether it be when we speak to each other, whether we're on text, it
Yep.
just is a beautiful flow.
Always.
And now after today, I understand even more because of our similar experiences.
Totally. I look forward to many more, Kaliji. Thank you so much for joining
Absolutely.
me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It is it's a great honor, and to be invited, and then to be invited in the earliest stages of your new podcast. And I wish you all the best for May 1st. I will share the great message.
Thank you.
And you are the great messenger for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.